Here we go. There we go. We had some technical difficulties there for a minute. I tried to go live through another platform. Of course, that didn't work, so I'm going live through this platform. And so those of you who are here, hold on one second. I'm going to get a hold of those that are not here because we promoted it through the other platform we were using. So hold on. All right. So we're on. We're good. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Whenever I hit the go live on the other platform, it kept saying going live, going live. Well, it hit 7 o'clock and I wasn't live yet, so I had to go through the other platform that I usually go through. So looks like I'm going to stick with this one for a while because at least it gets on whenever I hit go live immediately. Anyways, tonight I'm going to be talking with Travis Knobbe. If you don't know who he is, well, that means you haven't gone over to the West Virginia channel by Mark Rogers because that's who I've been talking with. And every time I go on the Mark Rogers West Virginia YouTube channel and I have a conversation with Travis, I just think we have really good chemistry. And so finally, the last time I went on there, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a hold of this guy and I'm going to have him on my show because I think we have good chemistry and we bounce stuff off each other pretty well. So I'm going to bring on Travis real quick, and we'll go from there. How's it going, bud?
Good, Chris. How are you, man?
Well, we got through the technical difficulties, so I'm doing much better now.
Oh, that's always the first segment of a good stream, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That means good things are coming. Uh, it's still a pain, though. It's still a pain, especially whenever it says it's going live and it never goes live. That's the most annoying thing. At least when something says error or something like that, you know it's not going to work. But whenever it's saying going live, it's giving you hope, and then it lets you down. So we got through it. We're here now. We wanted to talk a little bit about some West Virginia football, some of the position battles going on, and maybe talk about the coaches, their tenure, what's going on with that. By the way, I don't know if I told you earlier, but I'm actually trying to get Brian Singer on a live show as well. He's the #1 recruit out of the state of West Virginia that they just grabbed out of Parkersburg. So fingers crossed on that one as well.
Yeah, that'd be a good spot for you.
Oh yeah, we'll see if we can get that done. So first, let's talk about the Graham Harrell hire. That's the biggest thing on the plate because our defense has been fine since Neil Brown has taken over. It's our offense that's looking like it's taking a step backwards. Just kind of vanilla, not very exciting. Not good enough to win football games. Not, it's not going to give games away, but it just not good. Can't chew up clock. Can't, move the chains, and then scoring points. So, in my opinion, I think the Graham Harrell hire is a home run hire, and West Virginia fans are not going to realize how different the offense is going to be, which you pointed out earlier might not be a bad thing, a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. The articles that I've put out there about Graham Harrell, there have been some detraction comments. People saying, well, it's still going to be Neil Brown's show, and it's still the air raid offense, and the people like that. I mean, I get the last 3 years, you kind of want to have some skepticism because you don't want to be disappointed.
Yep.
But Harold does it differently than Neil Brown does in some important ways, and I think folks will be pleasantly surprised by that.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I think one thing that West Virginia fans don't realize about Graham Harrell is he's really good at disguising weaknesses. Last year we had some glaring weaknesses that we could just not get around, and it hurt us game after game after game. We relied heavily on our defense, which I expect we're still going to rely on the defense because it'll be the better side of the ball. But I do think that our weaknesses aren't going to be as glaring because of how Graham Harrell calls the games.
Yeah, no, that's right. And just, before we even get into that, just look at it sort sort of statistically, I actually think that with the returning snap counts and the unexpected returns of a couple of players, namely Dante Stills and Josh Chandler-Semedo, I actually think the defense is going to be a hair better next year than it was this most recent.
Yeah.
And Graham Harrell, every school he went to, the first year he came in, they bumped their offensive output by at least 6 points a game.
Yeah.
And with all the 50-50 games we played this year, as you mentioned several times in your shows and on Mark Rogers' channel, 6 points a game is the difference in half of those.
Exactly right. Hey, give me 1 second. I'm going to make sure my mic is turned around. They're saying they're having difficulty hearing you, so give me 1 second. Sorry, guys. Y'all might hear a pop. I'm just making sure this mic is turned around right. Alright, there we go. We should be good. Y'all should be able to hear him. Make sure my volume is on its loudest as well. Yeah, alright, we're good.
How's that sounding?
Are we good, guys? I think we're good because I had to twist it a little bit because the sound was pointing a little down. I didn't realize that. But I agree with you. I pointed out many times, 50-50 football games, that's what killed us last year as far as losing. We went 6-7, 4 of those games were 50-50s. And if you flip half of those 4, that's an 8-4 season right there. And if you flip all of those, that's a 10-win season. I'm not asking Graham Harrell to flip all of them. I'm asking him to flip half of them.
Yeah, that's definitely that's not too big of an ask, especially with some of the Big 12 teams are going to be a little down from last year, and there aren't really that many that you look at and you say, hey, they were already down, they're going to be up. Maybe Texas Tech could surprise some people, but that's about the only one I see that would really increase from last year in their production.
I agree with you 100%. I think Texas Tech is not going to be a bottom feeder this year. I did kind of wonder why they fired Matt Wells, because I thought Texas Tech was doing good this year, and they actually kind of dipped after they fired him. So why they fired him, I don't know. Maybe their expectations are much higher than I realized. Not sure about that. What did you think about that?
Well, it was a little weird, and it gave some ammunition to the folks who have been impatient on our side. Like, hey, look, they just fired Matt Wells, and he's had a couple 8-4 seasons.
Yeah, that was the
not good enough.
Yeah, that was the big thing that got me kind of nervous. I was like, if they're because I believe whenever he got fired, they were 6-1 or 5-1, something like that, and they fire him. I'm like, y'all are like one game away from a bowl, and you fire your coach, and you're having a decent season. I didn't understand it.
Yeah, nor did I. It could have been. Sometimes things happen behind the scenes that are purposely not revealed. Maybe that was it, but I don't know. I agree with you. It didn't resonate well with me.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to switch phones. I'm going to call you back from this other phone. They're saying the sound on this phone is a bit fuzzy. This is going to be a heck of a show. This is the 3rd technical difficulty we've had, so y'all better stick around, because if quality of a show is measured by how many technical difficulties you have, this is going to be a heck of a show. All right, I'm going to switch phones. I'll give you a call back, all right?
All right, sounds good.
Very patient man. Can y'all hear me okay? That's my first question. It seems like everybody can hear me okay and not him okay. So I want to make sure that y'all can hear me first and make sure it's not the actual mic, because if it's the mic, then it doesn't matter what phone I use. So y'all give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or give me a comment about can you hear me okay? Man, y'all are saying it sounds distant. That is weird. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on, guys. Hold on. Where am I at? It might have reset. Hold on. Crap. Let's see. audio. There we go. Make sure my source. Well, on the track it looks like it's fine. Give me a sec. That doesn't make any sense, guys. Hold on. Maybe it's the cover. You might hear some popping. Might hear some popping. Is that better? How's that, guys? Maybe it was the position of the mic. How's that? Check 1 2 1 2. Good. All right. I think we figured it out. All right. So let me give him a call back. I think we figured it out. No call-ins tonight.
Hey, Chris.
Yes, sir. I think we figured it out. The position of the mic was off just a little bit. So lesson learned on that one. I didn't even know that could happen, but I definitely learned my lesson. All right. So to wrap up the Texas Tech thing, what we were talking about was Texas Tech fires Matt Wells. They were, let's see, they were, I'm thinking 5-1, one game away from a bowl, and they fire Matt Wells. They finished the season, I think, 7-5, went to a decent bowl. And then you look at West Virginia, and we go 6-7, so that kind of puts pressure on us. Are their expectations higher than ours? And after they fired Matt Wells, they floundered. I think they lost 4 of their last 5, something like that. So that one was a bit of a head scratcher. So maybe that might keep Texas Tech from progressing. Maybe they were going to progress, but because of the coaching change, that actually might not happen.
Yeah, I mean that could always be the case. And still, I do scratch my head about that and wonder if it wasn't something behind the scenes that we just don't know about, because
yeah,
it is strange.
And that was shortly after they beat West Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. So it was just the weirdest timing as far as a coach being fired that I can think in recent memory, to be honest with you. It was crazy. And I'm glad somebody else caught that as well, because I'm like, why is nobody talking about this? That didn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's weird. And the group I write for, unfortunately, mid-season we added a Texas Tech writer, and it was after that firing, so it was sort of out of sight, out of mind. Didn't really have a chance to ask any Texas Tech insiders about it, but I'd be interested to hear their takes.
Exactly, me too. So, quick question. Going from 2021 to 2022, who do you think are the Big 12 teams that could slide, and the Big 12 teams that you think could take the biggest jumps? Just a couple teams, the biggest fallers in your opinion, and the biggest jumpers in your opinion.
It's always tough to say that Oklahoma is going to slide, but I do think that Venables brings a totally different philosophy to that program. So it's hard to imagine that program not taking a game or two slide, which for them is pretty big.
Yeah.
So I'd put them on the list, and I think maybe I'm going to go with Baylor as a number 2. Their head coach Aranda has worked some magic and brought them up the hill pretty quickly.
Yeah. Real quickly.
But I just wonder how much of it was, taking folks by surprise versus, the talent on the field doing what it needed to do. So I could see them taking a game or two slide as well. I think that's probably the biggest sliders, because everyone else except for Oklahoma State was kind of in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, at first I was thinking Oklahoma State, but man, that hire Derek Mason from Auburn, I don't think they're gonna slide, to be honest with you. I think their strong suit is their defense. Their defense might actually be better. They do get their starting quarterback back, Spencer Sanders. I mean, he's not the most electric quarterback ever, but he does enough. So I'm taking Oklahoma State off the list. And I agree with you, Baylor and Oklahoma, and that's why I've told West Virginia fans, and I've never said this before. I'm being honest. This is the year that West Virginia could beat Oklahoma. Some fans thought last year because of some issues Oklahoma was having, and maybe Oklahoma was going to be distracted because of the SEC news. Maybe there was something to that. But this year, Oklahoma is going through a big coaching change. They're going from an offensive philosophy to a defensive philosophy. They lost all their quarterbacks from last year. So I agree with you on both of those. And I think West Virginia has a shot to beat Oklahoma this year in Morgantown.
Yeah, they're going to be considerably younger. It wasn't just losing all their quarterbacks, but they lost quite a bit on the skill position front too to USC. So Lincoln Riley left and took some with him, and then turned around and complained about the transfer portal, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, and I
But
think Baylor benefited from the scheduling too. I think they had one of the easier schedules in the Big 12, and that's going to flip around on them this year. So I think Baylor slides not like horribly, but I'm thinking maybe 8-4, something like that, and not winning the Big 12 for sure. What about the jumpers?
jumpers, you always got to watch out for TCU. They've now had a half a season with their new head coach, if I'm remembering right, when they got rid of Patterson.
Yes, sir.
So maybe they've made some adjustments. But I actually think it's going to be Kansas State and West Virginia are going to be the guys that jump the game to maybe more.
Man, we did not talk about this subject before I brought you on like this, what we're talking about right now. And I agree with you 100%. Those were my teams on both the sliders and jumpers. So I'm with you on this. I think Kansas State
That's
could actually be dangerous, to be honest with you. I think they could contend for the Big 12 championship right up there with Oklahoma State.
Yeah, they could. If they don't, though, what you got to worry about if you're a Wildcat fan is, if they don't make that jump, are they sort of back to where they were before Bill Snyder, and it's a hole they can never climb out of? But
Yeah.
I don't really see that happening. I see some talent there that hasn't put it all together yet, and if they're going to do it, they're going to do it this year. So I'm not afraid to call them as a gainer.
And I agree with that. I would say this: whenever you said hole, like before Bill Snyder got there, the hole that Kansas State was in before Bill Snyder got there was worst in the nation for a very long time. So I wouldn't compare it to that hole, but probably the land of mediocrity as far as like barely getting to a bowl, maybe having a losing season, but nothing compared to what they were before Bill Snyder. I mean, Kansas State was historically bad before Bill Snyder. But I do agree with you. If they don't do it this year, that it could be a long time before they're a contender.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's shift gears to the quarterback battle. Talk of the town in Morgantown right now. So, what are your feelings on who might have the inside track? Now, I mean, technically, Garrett Green has the most experience, but I would say Nico has the most talent.
Yeah, I think that's right. I just it'll be out a little later this week, but I just finished up my quarterback preview article, and something I didn't put in there, but was thinking about today is that Graham Harrell is not he was not really a run first quarterback himself. He was definitely a gunslinger, and how many passing records he broke, it's clear and evident that that's what he was.
Oh yeah.
And the quarterbacks that he's favored in his system have also been gunslingers. And not to say that Garrett Green doesn't have an arm, he may very well, but he hasn't shown it yet.
Yeah.
And he seems to improvise a lot more than I would think Harold wanted to. So I agree with you that he's probably not the guy, even though he has the most experience. And then to me, it comes down to Crowder versus Nico, and I kind of feel like with the eggs that were put into the Nico basket, that as long as he comes in and shows a level head and shows the type of leadership and moxie that he did in high school, it's probably going to be him, but frankly, it's a little too early to tell.
Yes, but I like what you pointed out that Graham Harrell himself, as a quarterback at Texas Tech, he was a throw it first type of quarterback, a gunslinger, and that's why Will Crowder. Don't be surprised if he comes out and starts for West Virginia against Pitt because of that exact thing that you said. Because out of all the quarterbacks that we have right now, he's the highest as far as touted for his passing. Now, Nico is a good passer, but he's a very good dual threat. Now, he has passed first, so that's going to help him. But the fact that Crowder just likes to sling it, that's going to help him under this Graham Harrell offense.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing to me about Crowder, thinking back to when I did my recruiting profile on him, he is definitely a pass first quarterback, but he's also one of those that, kind of like Spencer Sanders at Oklahoma State. He's not that quick.
Yeah.
But he's got a good sense for when the pocket collapses and finds his way to get yards. And even if he got 3-4 yards to carry when the pocket collapses, based on what we saw from Daggy this year,
that'd be 4 times better.
Right, exactly. That would be a welcome addition.
Well, I've heard the comparison in a sense with Trevor Lawrence. Of course, Trevor Lawrence is a once-in-a-lifetime generation type of quarterback, so I'm not putting him on that pedestal. But what I'm saying is the comparison is great throwing quarterback, but can deceive the defense into thinking he can't run, and all of a sudden he's got 5-6 yards, and they're like, where did that come from? A busted play turns into 5-6 yards, and the defense isn't thinking he's going to run because, of course, he's passed first, and he's not the quickest quarterback, but somehow, some way, he wheels 5 or 6 yards out of a broken play. So I like that comparison too, because I think one of our biggest issues last year was Daggy was terrible at creating something out of a broken play. Honestly, I wish the dude would have just thrown it away every time that happened, but for whatever reason, he tried to force it, and that's where the interceptions came from. So as long as Nico doesn't do that, we'll definitely improve on offense. Throw it away or try to get those 3 or 4 yards. That's better than a sack or an interception.
Listen, just grace under pressure would be a welcome addition, because that has always been my number one knock on Daggy, is that
Yep.
Yeah, when the offensive line holds up, great. He's got a cannon when he needs it, especially in those sort of mid-range passes. But man, whenever it collapses, he looks like a deer in headlights. It's an overused cliche, but it's fitting here.
Well, and that's why Garrett Green, even though he has escapability, he also doesn't have grace. He panics too quickly and improvises too quickly. Now, he's got the legs to gain some yards out of broken plays, but he doesn't give those routes enough time to develop. He panics about a second and a half into his reads, and off he goes. So, he's kind of the same as Daggy as far as not having grace under pressure. Now, he could get away from that pressure, but he's got to learn not to panic so early.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I hadn't really thought about that. That is a fair assessment. In fact, when you said it, I'm kind of like, geez, maybe a second and a half might be giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. So, and that's why when people are like, why don't you just stick with Green? I'm like, if you look at Daggy and you look at Green, they're the same quarterback as far as grace under pressure. Daggy has the better arm, and Garrett Green has the better legs. So it's just what can bail you out of those, panicky situations. And I know Garrett Green, his legs can't do that, but at the same time, he also fumbled. Ball security was an issue for Garrett Green. So every time he took off, it's like you held your breath,
Yeah, indeed. And the funny thing is Will Crowder has played exactly 8 snaps for West Virginia, all of which obviously came last year. And I think in those 8 snaps, he threw 4 passes.
Yep.
I'm just confirmed. No, he threw 2 actually, but he was 2 for 2, 28 yards on those passes.
Not bad.
Now, granted, like when he's coming in, it's complete garbage time.
Right.
But
That was probably against the FCS team too, wasn't it?
yeah, if I'm not mistaken, but like Garrett Green's first year, he so similar to what Crowder was in. His first year, he played 21 snaps. He was 2 for 6 for 40 yards.
I do think that's a big knock on Neil Brown. He's got to get. I know he wants to rely on his guy, but if you want to have a quarterback the next year, that quarterback has to have experience. So that's one knock that I will put on Neil Brown is not giving his backups a lot of experience. And it was a make or break with Jarrett Dagey. I mean, that was it. Jarrett Dagey was his guy because he didn't give enough reps to the other guys. So hopefully he gives the reins completely over to Graham Harrell. And if Graham Harrell sees the opportunity to give some experience to one of these other quarterbacks, he does it as well. Because you do want to be able to have a fallback plan. Because hopefully it doesn't happen. But what if your lead guy gets injured, or the transfer portal? I mean, it happens. I don't like to think about it, but it happens. You got to have that second guy ready.
Well, and that's exactly what I was going to say. Is that not only is it getting your guys some experience, but it's also giving them enough snaps to feel like they're part of the team and part of the offense. Otherwise, away they go.
Right, and a lot of fans were saying that they wouldn't be surprised if Garrett Green transferred out. I don't see that happening unless he wants to play for like a Marshall or a team like that. Which I mean, it does happen. But I think he's going to stick it out at West Virginia as long as Graham Harrell gives him some opportunities.
Yeah. Now, by the way, though, I mean, it still is a knock on Neil Brown for not getting his guys reps. But part of the problem was that the offense was so lackluster that we never really built comfortable enough leads to do that in the normal situations where you bring in your backups.
I agree with that 100%. I do. And the crazy thing is our defense now from 2020 to 2021 we lost a lot of our key players on defense, and we had a top 5 defense in the nation. Now if you look at it on paper, we should have been a terrible defense last year, but we weren't elite like we were in 2020, but we were pretty good and good enough to keep us in football games. I think that's going to be I think it's going to be even better because we returned pretty much everybody on defense. It's can the offense take those opportunities that the defense gives them and actually turn it into something? I don't know how many times I was sitting there watching a West Virginia football game. Defense does it again, like 3 or 4 times in a row, and I'm like, is the offense going to do something this time? Nope, we had to punt it. Defense does their job. Is the offense? It was the same. It was rinse and repeat over and over. Defense stopped. Couldn't move the chains. That's the biggest thing that has to change this year is taking advantage of the opportunities that defense gives us. And they give us opportunities, I'd say at least 4 or 5 times in a game to change the game. It's just we never could do that.
Yeah, no, that's a fair assessment. Spot on. And like I said, I mean, I think just looking at who's returned and what the snap counts look like and who's coming in that is probably game ready. And the only weakness I see on the defense at all is safety.
Yes.
And I think with the excess, like we've got an abundance of returning talent at the tackle and defensive end positions. So I think we're gonna pressure the weakness. Just
right.
You know what they say, more pressure covers the back end.
Exactly.
And, I think we're gonna be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think our defense has been able to prove that if there is sort of a weakness, that they can overtake that and not put that much pressure on whatever's weak. Take the pressure off the weakness.
Yeah, indeed. They find a way to get their best 11 in, and on defense, they've done a much better job at rotating the snap counts and getting the younger guys experience more quickly than they have on the offense. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
And frankly, if the offense, like you think about it, if the offense would have played better last year, I think the defense of the time. Well, the defense gets worn down pretty quickly, and it really can only do so much before its spirit is just dissolved.
Exactly right. And you saw that game after game where they would fight, and you get in the fourth quarter and they're just gassed. And these players are leaving not because they don't want to play. They're getting a ton of playing time because it's the defense that's mostly out there. But you get sick of your spirit being broken game after game, and I think that's what we saw. I think one of the bigger keys that people are kind of overlooking for this year is the running game that could set up the passing game. I don't know about you, but watching the past 2 years, I rarely saw where. Now, we had a decent running game in 2020, but at the same time, for whatever reason, Neil Brown wouldn't set up play action. He would run it, and then throw it, but the play action wasn't there. So, what I'm looking for this year is number one, our running game to be better, and number two, let's set up those play actions. It works, and I haven't seen it in a while at West Virginia.
Well, and also think about not just play action, but how bad Daggy was on bootlegs.
Yes.
Like, having someone who has a little bit of speed and can bootleg it a little bit.
Yeah, and that's how we. I'm glad you brought that up because that's exactly how we had to do play action was bootleg because, he couldn't stand in there enough to get rid of it or make a play with his legs. And then when he did bootleg it, it looked like he was a turtle crossing the field.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that made me laugh, I don't know if I'm the only one who's really like paid this much attention, but Daggy's fake pass when he actually did was like the weakest fake pass I've ever seen. I mean,
it looked like he was just flipping his wrist. Like he wouldn't use his arm, he just used his wrist like he was waving.
Right. Just Daggy, that didn't fake anybody out.
No. Nobody thought you were trying to high five him or something. I don't know what he was trying to do. So yeah, I'll be looking at the what's it called, the showing the quarterbacks how to pump fake. I think is an underrated trait. And with Graham Harrell being a former quarterback, we're going to see our quarterbacks do stuff like that we haven't seen in the past. People don't understand that pump fake or that bootleg or that play action is a big deal, and that's just something that West Virginia hasn't had over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I mean you have to throw the opposing defense off balance. You take advantage of speed and misdirection, and we didn't have that, and I think that we will have a lot more than this next year, and that's one of those subtle differences where even if folks are right that Graham Harrell runs almost the exact same offense that Neil Brown did, you introduce those concepts with some people who can execute them a little bit better, and it makes a world of difference because it's a game of inches, and inches add up quickly.
Yeah, I agree with you. One of the things that Neil Brown said when he brought in Graham Harrell is, they had similar concepts, and fans were like, "Oh man, it's just going to be the same." No, y'all don't realize, okay? When he says similar concepts, it doesn't mean he brought in the same exact playbook. It just means concept as how he does things. And with Graham Harrell being a former quarterback, he can literally hands-on show these quarterbacks the correct way to bootleg, to pump fake, play action, all that little stuff that we don't really notice that makes a big difference in the game. And that's why I think just the look of our offense is going to be completely different.
Yeah, and people forget about like the type of things that matter to a person's development, their own development. And Graham Harrell, he broke records in college. One of the knocks against him was, is he a system quarterback or not? And the fact that he had a short NFL career, some people take as proof positive that that's all he was. But Graham Harrell kind of entered the NFL in an unfortunate situation where he was the backup to one of the greatest of all time.
Right.
But you hear him talk about his time under Aaron Rodgers and the extra time that Aaron Rodgers took to sort of teach him how to do things and the detail-oriented nature of Aaron Rodgers' preparation.
Yeah.
And if you think that hasn't carried over to the way Graham Harrell has learned and absorbed the game as a student of it and as a teacher of it, you're mistaken. Just no other way to put it.
I agree with that. So, how do you feel about our running game? Do you think it's going to be better? Now, don't get me wrong. I do think we'll miss Letty Brown, but I think the combo that we have this year is going to be much more complementary to our offensive line. Letty Brown was a specific type of runner. We got Lynn J. Dixon, the transfer from Clemson, and we still have Mathis coming in. Those are two completely different types of running backs. You have Lynn J. Dixon, he's going to be the guy that pounds it down the middle. You don't really have to open much of a hole for him to sneak through. And then you have Tony Mathis, who's kind of the streaky guy, likes to go around the edge and stuff like that. So I think our offense is going to have more dimension with those two running backs in the backfield.
I agree for sure. Though one thing I wouldn't underestimate, and I know you're not, but sort of putting a little more color on the comment. Lynn J definitely has some jukes to him.
Yes.
He can play in this direction, but he's not afraid. He's not afraid to pop through the hole.
Right.
And once he does, he's got a linebacker coming at him. That's when he puts the shift on.
Yeah, and people like to look at his stats from last year. Well, he had some issues in the locker room, and they didn't play him that much. If you look at his stats from 2020, dude was averaging 6-7 yards a carry, upwards of 8 actually. So he's definitely an explosive player, and having those two running backs, I would like for some plays to be called to where there's a double back set. That way, the defense is really guessing on which running back they're going to give it to and what kind of style they're going to have to try to tackle.
Well, and they have the depth to do it as well because don't forget that right behind them are two 4-star guys in Justin Johnson and Jalen Anderson.
Jalen Anderson, yes.
I was really excited about both of them when they came in because they both bring different things to the table, and both of them seem like they were very much sort of worker types where they also, you look at their film, and they both put pretty big emphasis on putting in their film instances where they're just blocking to spring a receiver.
Yep.
And that's the kind of stuff that's the kind of detail that can help. But you got 4 running backs, all of whom should be more than capable of carrying the ball. You can do double back sets.
Yeah. And I think they can block for extra pass protection when needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll do some 12 personnel with 2 tight ends to help on that too.
Right. What's your confidence on maybe Graham Harrell sprinkling in more tight end action as far as the quarterback getting the ball to the tight end? I think that's a missed concept in our offense over the past couple of years. I'd like to see a little bit more of that. Well, actually, a lot more of that. You see the NFL going to the tight ends a lot more, and college is starting to shift over to tight ends being playmakers.
Yeah, I think we've got the personnel to do it, depending on how quickly some of the younger guys come along.
Yeah.
Corbin Page. I think the thing that really sold the coaching staff on him was Corbin Page showing up to 7-on-7s and being a playmaker.
Right.
And this other younger tight end we got, DeCarlo Donaldson, he could legit line up as a slot receiver and tear people up.
I agree with that.
So we've got some guys, and you don't sign 7 people in a room, as small as the tight end room, with no intention of playing them. And Harrell has, he's relied through his career. He's relied heavily on one tight end as his pass catcher, and another 1 or 2 tight ends as his blockers.
Yeah.
So he's shown a tendency towards it.
Yeah, and I think that'll help us with our issues with moving the chains. That was one of our biggest issues. We could have, I remember I went to the Virginia Tech game where Letty broke a 70-yarder for a touchdown, and yet we needed every stinking point in that game because it came down to a fourth and goal stand. But as far as moving the chains, we had issues doing that, shortening the game, chewing up clock. That's how West Virginia wins football games. And I know we got away from that under Dana Holgerson, and he also liked to use the transfer portal and all that stuff to hide weaknesses. But the way West Virginia really won football games in its heyday was a good running game, but having those playmakers on the outside to where if you wanted to stretch the field, you could, but shortening the game, moving the chains, and making the most of your opportunities. Because, West Virginia, we're not Alabama, we're not Clemson, we're not Ohio State. So we have to learn to make the most of our opportunities, and our defense definitely gives us plenty of opportunities.
Yeah, that it does.
So hopefully this year, that's what we see in the offense. No complaints about the defense. It's just our offense has got to take those opportunities. Another real quick thing is we have got to improve on our field position. Whenever I saw the stats come out against Minnesota, when I looked at the field position difference, that's when I looked and I said, we're going to lose this football game. Because that one statistic was such a big mismatch, there was no way to overcome that. We have got to be able to get good field position off of these kickoffs and punt returns and set our defense up to where they're not, starting off on the 50-yard line. We have to flip the field more.
Yeah, that's a, I think that's a highly underrated aspect of the game of football, just in general. And I know the staff has worked really hard to bring in a better sort of kickoff specialist. Our field goal unit was really good last year,
Yeah.
but our kickoff unit was not that good. I mean,
not at all.
I think our touchback percentage was in the bottom 20 in the country, and our kicking the ball out of the, our procedure penalties where we kick it out of bounds, I think was like the worst in the country.
It was horrific, man.
And that's been sort of an ongoing problem, which is interesting because one of the things that sort of Neil Brown touts about himself is that he focuses heavily on special teams.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a matter of we just don't have the right kicker yet. And I know they've been looking particularly at a couple names, but both of them went elsewhere so far. We get a guy like that in, that'll help average field position by 5 to 10 yards.
And that makes a difference.
For our defense.
Yeah. And the thing that was concerning last year, and quite honestly the year before, was the way that our offense put our defense in a position to where, the opposing offense would be starting on their own 40, 45, 35, excellent field position for them. And, most of the time the defense was up to the task, and you're like, man, they got us out of that jam again. But like you mentioned earlier, as the game goes on, they get gassed. The offense is still doing the same thing, giving the opposing offense same great field position, and finally the defense has had enough. They're gassed, and they start putting points on us. That's one key thing that I think people are overlooking, is making our defense having to bail us out over and over and over, not just in possessions, but in the actual where they start, bad field position. They can't bail us out time and time again. So, that's why I wanted to bring up the field position thing, and why I thought that we were most definitely going to lose to Minnesota, just because they were great. They were one of the best in the nation as far as flipping the field, and we were one of the worst in the nation. It was a big mismatch for us, and that's exactly what they did to us in the game. If you watch the game, Minnesota wasn't anything spectacular, but what they were good at is what they were good at, and that's what they beat us with.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you ended with that comment, because that's what on the field.
Yes.
And that's his philosophy. Now you're talking about it more from Minnesota as a team did the things it was good at, but frankly, with what we said about the defense, if our offense can figure out how to do the things it's good at,
Yep.
we're a lot better team as a result.
Well, I mean, you look at the final score, 18-6. Yes, they dominate us, but if we would have had a halfway decent offense, I mean, being able to score 20 points and we would have won that game. So it came down to the offense just being able to do what it can do well. I'm glad you brought that up because it seemed like the things that we were bad at, we kept doing over and over and over. I'm like, why are we doing that play again? That play never works, but he called it again. So I'm hoping that Graham Harrell kind of gets us away from that, and he sees, well, that play doesn't work. We're not going to use that, and that play works. We're going to put that heavily in the rotation, and if you don't stop something until they stop it. If they don't stop it, you don't stop it. And I'm hoping that's how Graham Harrell approaches this season. If we're good at something specific and the opposing defense doesn't stop it, then we shouldn't stop.
Right. No, I agree with that. And one of the things, I mean, Neil is clearly a very cerebral type of person. And preparation for him is critical, right? So
yes.
One thing you notice, and I think he, by his own admission, several times has said, look, I begin the first half and the second half, the first two drives are scripted, and then after that we adjust.
Right.
The more I thought about that, the more I thought, I don't know, maybe the first drive you script the first few plays, and you get a feel for it, but I'd be interested to know how many coaches exactly script that much of their game, because four drives is about what the average team has 11 to 13 drives. That's 25% of the game that's by script.
Yeah, the funny thing is, we were actually good. I'm not sure about the second half. I'd have to go check it out, but we were actually pretty good at having a scoring drive off our first drive, whether it be a field goal or a touchdown. Our second drive was usually bad. So, I didn't realize that those first... Now, you're saying the first two drives of each half, so 4 total, right?
Yeah.
All right, so the first drives were usually pretty good. We got some type of points out of it. But, the second drive just seemed like it was bad for whatever reason. And that was before I knew what you just told me. So now I'm thinking, if you want to script the first play or the first drive of the first half and the first drive of the second half, that's fine. But beyond that, try not to do that because it doesn't work. So I'm okay if he wants to script, one drive for each half. That's fine. I understand. It gives you a foundation to build off of. But after that, you have to go with the game flow.
Yeah, no, and I think that's right because look, like when you script your first drive, you consciously break up your tendency.
Yes.
But you script the second one, and you've written a new tendency, and they've got a defensive coordinator or a defensive assistant in the box who's looking at it from on high, who's calling down instructions, who wrote the tendencies down. You've got people figuring that out in real time.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why the second scripted drive of each half failed, because they're like, oh, here's the tendency now.
Exactly right. And once you get into Big 12 play, they have plenty of games that have you scouted on. So that's not going to work against that. And I had no idea that that's what he did. So, I'm hoping that Graham Harrell at least breaks it down to 1-1. If Neil Brown can't completely get rid of it, he has to do it, then at least get rid of half of it. Just do 1 to open and 1 to open the second half. And that needs to be the bare minimum right there. I'll be okay with that. But any more than that, no, I'm not okay with that. So looking at the schedule, here's my philosophy. If we can split the road trips to Pitt and Virginia Tech, and I would prefer to beat Pitt and lose in Blacksburg. I'd love to win both, but that's a daunting task. If we can split that, go into that first what is it, road trip to Texas 3-1, and I think that's a winnable game, beating Texas. Come out of that 4-1, and then in Big 12 play, go what? How many games? We got 9. Go at least what, 6-3, 5-4 at worst. We need to have at least an 8-4. I say that kind of tentatively. I would love to have an 8-4, but I'm going to say it again. If West Virginia goes 7-5, I'm okay with that as long as we see a tremendous growth, a tremendous step forward on offense. That's the only way that I'm okay with 7-5. Otherwise, we have to go at least 8-4. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree with that, and frankly, even if we're 8-4, but we're still averaging 25 points a game, I'm gonna have some reservations. I'm gonna be writing in my game logs. What is this that we're watching? Like I did last year.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what I'm saying. I'm hoping the fans aren't focusing strictly on wins and losses. Like, oh man, we unexpectedly went 9-3. Well, look at the whole picture. Was the Big 12 down? Were we still only averaging, 27, 28 points a game, and our defense was just, even better this year? You have to look at the whole picture to see how we're really progressing. And on the same token, oh, 7-5. No, we need to get rid of Neil Brown. Well, hold on. Watch the games. Did we start averaging above 30 points a game? That's actually a sign that our offense is getting better, and a lot of those guys are young. So we need to see those young guys grow up a little bit, take a step forward this year, and just put more points on the board consistently. Not feast or famine like we did against Iowa State, 37 points. That was a rare thing. 37 points for West Virginia on offense was wow. That was a tremendous game. That should never be the case. That should be, well, that was another one of our decent games, but not like a rare instance.
right. No, I agree with that. And speaking of young, one thing that I looked at when I was developing my snap count chart for the year is that we only have on the roster right now, including the freshmen that are coming in the summer. We only have 7 guys who have to graduate after this year.
Wow, which is
Um,
good.
but a lot of them are juniors or seniors with the extra COVID year.
Right.
So it's on balance. I mean, it's definitely the most experienced team that Neil Brown has had, but it's still not a senior laden. Everybody's got to go after this year team,
Right. Exactly.
which
I agree with
I
that.
consider to be a positive for both, and that's one of the reasons why I can agree with you at 7-5 with a better offense um, is a little more palatable than it may otherwise be because you've got so many players that are returning, and if they've bought in
Yeah.
and we don't see a mass attrition through the portal again, well, you're looking at a whole different type of thing.
Exactly. A foundation to build on. And just so I clarify that, what Travis was saying was not that we have 7 people that are going to be gone after next year, 7 people that could be gone, but they're still going to have eligibility at West Virginia if they choose so. So it's not like they're gone no matter what. They could come back if they chose. So I wanted to clarify that just in case people kind of got twisted on it, which is a good thing. Which means our team is young. If we see our offense take a big step forward this year, then they'll take an even bigger step forward the year after that, just because of how young we are. Before I let you go, the big question that everybody wants to know is our offensive line. Do you think it's going to be any better than what it was this year?
I do, and I have a couple of very specific reasons for saying that. If you look at this, is going to surprise some folks. It did me when I looked at it, but if you look at and if you put any stock at all into Pro Football Focus grading, which is a pretty sophisticated process and a complex one that relies on a bunch of NFL scouts looking at every play on film. Wyatt Milam, who grew significantly in the second half of the season, was just rounded out the top six. The only player that was below average on the offensive line last year was Brandon Yates.
Yep.
If we could find a way to solve the left tackle problem, and maybe the left tackle problem is as easy a solution as now we've got Nico, who's a lefty, and Yates is blocking for his blind side. Maybe that's the difference. But the returning snap count on the offensive line is really interesting to look at. It matters because more than any position on the field, offensive line relies most heavily on experience.
Exactly.
And we've got Committer with over 1,600 returning snaps. We've got Yates with over 1,400. We've got Nestor with over 1,700, and Frazier with over 1,300, and Wyatt Milam, who's only played 1 year, with over 500. That's a pretty good distribution of snaps. I do think they get better with that experience, and Graham, as you said, is good at sort of disguising strength and weakness. So whatever weakness there is left on the line, I think he'll do a pretty good job at scheming around it.
Yeah, I like that triple combo. So Nico being a lefty, that helps because our biggest weakness is on the left side. Number two, more experience, and these guys are going to have an extra off season to kind of gel together. And three, Graham Harrell scheming to kind of try to cover up the weaknesses. So I think with those three things coming together, that's going to show tremendous improvement, or even if it's not technically tremendous improvement, it'll at least look like it's tremendous improvement, and we'll be able to move the ball, run the ball, and keep hands off our quarterback, which was a big deal last year.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, bud. Well, I appreciate you joining. Tell everybody what you do and where they can find you.
Well, again, my name is Travis Knobbe, spelled Knobbe, and I write for Last Word on College Football. You just enter Last Word on College Football into Google. You'll find that site. You'll find my articles pretty easily.
And I definitely appreciate you taking the time out to come on my live show. And I hope you can come back on because I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. We agreed far more than I thought we would.
You know, I was trying to think of things to disagree with you on, but I was like, man, that's what I was going to say. Dadgummit, I wanted to disagree, but I can't. It's like
Great minds think alike, right?
There you go. We were thinking the same thing. Hey, what you talked about, the technical difficulties, I'm going to keep that in mind from now on.
What's that? It's a great way to start a show?
Yeah, if you have a technical difficulty, it means you're going to have a great show.
Yeah, well, maybe I wouldn't rely on that philosophy every time, though. It is stressful.
Yeah, you're right about that. You were right about that. Well, I appreciate your time, man, and I hope you have a good rest of your night, bud.
All right, brother. You too. Take care.
We'll see you. And now you know why I absolutely had to have Travis on my show. Me and him have pretty good chemistry. And I really did try to think of things to disagree with him on. And, whenever I asked him to come on the show, I said, okay, we want to talk about the quarterbacks, the running backs, the offensive line, the schedule, and maybe some on the coaching. Just kind of general thing. I didn't write any questions. What are you going to say? This is what No. We totally winged all that stuff. So I was going into this, just trying to think of different ways to maybe kind of disagree with him, because a lot of West Virginia guys that I talk to think quite differently than what I do about the upcoming season. No, me and him are pretty much right in line. There was very, very few things that I disagreed with him on. Even the jumpers and the fallers in the Big 12. Those teams that he mentioned as far as potential biggest fallers, Baylor, Oklahoma, same exact two teams. At one point, I did have Oklahoma State in over Baylor, but then whenever I heard that they hired Derek Mason as their defensive coordinator, they went off the board because that was their strength anyways. And then, of course, the biggest jumpers, Kansas State and West Virginia. You can throw Texas Tech in there as well. So, anyways, I'm definitely going to have him back on the show. That was a lot of fun. Now you know why I had him on here. We have good chemistry. Great conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Quickly, before I get off here, how about I do a few shout outs since y'all are here, anyways? I'll try to get through this. There we go. I'm going to try to get down the list real quick. All right, here we go. Jay Glizzy, 1999 in the house. Christian Trent in the SIP. Let's see, who else we got? Tim Hall, thank you for stopping by. The Big Bear, great supporter. John Kelly, in the rotation for one of our moderators. Ryan McCulloch, American Football Network. I'm trying not to miss anybody here, but I don't want to go too slow. Damon Tillman. Let's see, Browning Talk Sports Network. Baylor 03. Of course, Joey in the chat, so I appreciate you posing as Golden Blue Dude. And yes, I give him permission. I can't do it whenever I'm doing an interview. Millis Vanillis, I like that name. Thank you for stopping by. Did I miss anybody? Talk is Pit. I knew I was missing somebody. Talk is Pit. Yes, he did stop by. VicTube Productions. Glad you're doing well. You guys need to keep VicTube in your prayers. He had a accident with his chair. He has a motorized chair to help him get around, and he had an accident and fell off of it and broke his femur. He had surgery. I think it was yesterday, or was it today? But anyways, from what I saw today on his show, he's doing well. But y'all still need to keep him in his prayers that he heals quickly. Jacob Watson, Wisconsin sports fan. He's recovering from COVID. Anybody else? Jason Rollinson stopped by. Appreciate you stopping by. Nico Bootyface. That's a new one. That's a new name. And if you are new, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We do live shows all the time, and of course a regular video every single day. Brian Tucker stopped by, and I believe, nope, one more. Brendan Baker. I didn't forget about you, Brendan Baker. So anyways, if I missed your name, I apologize. I tried to get everybody, give y'all a shout out every time y'all come to the live show because y'all support me. So I try to support you back. By the way, tonight is the deadline for your I Am Going to Blue Dude or We Are Going to Blue Dude. John Kelly put my email in the comment section real quick. refsuck@gmail.com. All you have to do is make a 2 or 3 second video saying I am going to Blue Dude or We Are Going to Blue Dude, depending on who's in the video. And don't worry about quality of video and having to edit all that stuff because I've had people email me, have questions. You know, I'm afraid it'll turn out. Don't worry about that. I will edit it and make it look fantastic. I have some things and some tricks I can do. So don't worry about quality or the position of the camera and anything like that. Don't worry about it. I will take care of that. But the deadline is tonight. It is tonight. So if you want to be a part of that video, get your video clip in today at refs. You know what? Hold on, give me 1 second. I can get in here real quick and post it. That way y'all can see it on there. Just take me 1 second. Alright, there we go. There you go. That's the email. John Kelly beat me to it. My bad. My bad. I didn't see that. 2 times. Now you have no excuse. Oh, a new name. So I'm going to shout him out. Michael Cadilas? Cedilas. It's either Cedilas or Cadilas or Cadelas or Cedelas. One of those. And Jeff Webster getting in his You Are Yellow and Navy guy. Jeff is a disgruntled Alabama fan. But yeah, West Virginia fans call it gold and blue. Just like all fans of different, sports teams call their colors a specific thing. It is what it is. Anyways, thanks for stopping by. I hope that everybody had a fantastic time. I had a great time. And next scheduled live show is the call-in show on Saturday. But you never know, I might do a live show between now and then. So I'll keep you posted in the community section.